Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Second Win podcast. I am your host, Kerry Graves, back for episode 3, Mental Health and Sports. So, as I mentioned previously, this podcast will be centered on child welfare, mental health, and will cover a variety of aspects of life. And with today, we're going to talk a little bit about sports and mental health. I'm going to give you a wide variety of examples. Typically, I won't use names, but in this podcast, that might not be the case. We've got some things going on in sports that are just sideways, ladies and gentlemen. We've got individuals who are charged with taking care of your children that are acting a donkey every single day, and they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn at all. And it's amazing that we allow it to continue. Sometimes we can speak the loudest about what's happening. We can be an outrage. We can, cause a ripple at the organization or the particular school. But when it's all said and done, it is up to the adults at these institutions to make it shake and do something about the garbage that's going on. We put our kids in schools, in sports programs for their growth, for their mental health, physical health, and we don't expect or want anything sideways to happen to our kids. But as we all know, that is not the case. So let me start by saying I am a sports coach, football, high school AAU basketball, and I've been a sport coach for the better part of 20 plus years. And you can imagine I've been around a variety of coaches and I've seen a variety of coaches in their environment. And I'm going to start this off just guns a blazing. There's a particular school with the initial CPLA. And what's most disturbing, probably not the most, but disturbing, is the coach has a criminal past, but yet administration saw fit to have this individual coach their children or the kids that are playing a particular sport. And I have seen in person from this individual getting physical with kids. And I'm not talking about patting them on the back, in their face, being belligerent. And this is in, game while the game is running, to the point where during a particular game, a grandparent in the stands had finally had enough and said something to this coach while the game was going on because he was being super belligerent to this kid for a mistake. Now, don't get it twisted. When kids make mistakes in some situations, you have to let them know what they did wrong and how to fix it. But this wasn't about how to fix anything. This was about how terrible he was. This was being belligerent and degrading. And that grandparent had enough and went off on him, the coach. I've seen the same coach physically grab kids, physically push kids, and yet nothing has been done to this individual via the school, which tells me the school is just as complicit in these actions and that it's okay. And it got to the point where one of the kids, the kid, the example that I just mentioned, transferred schools because of the coach and his belligerence. And we want to talk about mental health and how does this affect the kids? Give a damn about the adult right now. But how does this affect the kids and moving forward and how they move on a day to day basis? What kind of sadness or anxiety did that entire year follow that kid around from being scared to go to practice, maybe scared in games? Yeah, I didn't want to mess up because I knew what was going to happen if I did. To the point where he transferred. And I told that kid that is one of the best moves you and your parents made because now the situation you're in is the total antithesis of what was happening, which was abuse, physical and emotional. So, what are we doing to these kids, people? And I don't want to hear some kids need tough love. Shut the hell up. Some kids do, but you don't put your hands on them, especially if they're not your kids. What can that lead to for the kids? Let's say if it happens later in their high school careers. Are they sketched out by some coaches? Does it affect their performance? What? And I can tell you, this particular team, you can tell it affected some of the kids' performances because they were always looking over their shoulder at what this donkey was going to do. Purely asinine. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this next part. And a few people, they're going to listen to this hopefully, and they're going to know exactly where I'm going. But then the same coach wants to bully people in the coaches' meeting about kids, bully other coaches into voting for him and his side when the numbers show a different story. I said that shit. What? And you can send this all over. I hope people listen to it all over. But this particular coach, he already knows I'm not scared. But more importantly, how can you allow this administration and parents this type of behavior and belligerence and physicality to happen to your kids? And who knows what was going on at practices? I got a slight glimpse from an individual whose name I won't even um, spit out, but it's ridiculous. Ridiculous, ridiculous. So, with that being said, you've got other situations in which can create mental health issues for kids. Culture, sports culture. And you can look at that from high school basketball to lacrosse, AAU basketball, which is huge, high school football. I'll even throw in there 7-on-7 football, which ain't, it is what it is. But the culture can create issues for our young athletes as well. When you take an AAU culture which is centered on you can be the best, little Timmy, but then you have these coaches that are belligerent, that play favorites, that put their hands on kids, and aren't ashamed, who promote violence. Team Charlotte, you heard me. What are we doing? And then you hear the coaches, well, I'm here for the kids. Are you really? Culture in high school sports, basketball and football, but we're promoting things such as show me the money. I mean, I know it's that kind of world right now in high school and college sports, but where do you draw the line? How does that intersect with mental health? Grandiosity, narcissism. Is that what we want out of our kids? If it is, go to carriegraves.com. Look me up because we need a session. You got coaches out here. Hey, kid, you don't need to play for that team because they're a bunch of players that look a certain way, and you are being treated as a slave. I said that. High school in High Point, North Carolina. Assistant coach is out of pocket. Don't know what the hell he's talking about. And then we allow these kids to reclass 2 and 3 times. Notice I didn't say one time. There are some exceptions. 2 and 3 times. Now you're being ridiculous. What kind of atmosphere and headspace are you putting your kids in? Well, look, Tim, I'm just going to wait for you to grow like 4 more inches. And so if you're like 20, 21, still playing AAU, high school ball, blah, 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 it's ridiculous. But that sets the kids up for failure. And we don't realize it because all we're looking at is the financial aspect that could potentially happen. My kid needs all the glory, which puts him at the center of attention. Histrionic. Look at me, look at me. What kind of world are we living in? We all know. It's a rhetorical question. To the point where some of these high school kids think they're untouchable. That's not life. You ever heard of Henry Ruggs? Unfortunate. The list goes on. But many of you are teaching these kids that they are untouchable. And the narcissism follows. So I mentioned culture in that the culture has to start with discipline and respect. Not you can do what the hell you want to do. Discipline and respect. How to overcome adversity. How to deal with your anxieties. How to deal with some moments when you get piping hot and you need a way to calm down. And how sports mirrors life. We're on a bad road, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting worse. But as parents, you have to stop allowing individuals and organizations to treat your children a certain way that only heightens their expectations, but also creates more anxiety, more irritability, and depression. By being physically abused and emotionally abused and set up for failure, and that they're untouchable, because that's not how life works. Administrations, you don't do your due diligence on coaches. You say you do, but it's the GOB system, baby. So, how is this impacting our kids? They're having to go through, if they haven't already, adverse childhood experiences, which is abuse, emotional and physical, along with a ton of other things. Look it up. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. The more adverse childhood experiences one goes through, the more they're on track to have to deal with poor life outcomes. And that boils down to the administration doing their homework for culture, for fit, criminal history, watching practices. Are these kids being verbally and emotionally abused, physically abused? But we have to do our part. And if we don't do our part, this shit is going to get out of hand. And we're going to look back and wonder, who the hell is this? This is not my kid. And I see tons of athletes, kids in therapy because of many, if not all of the reasons I have set forth here today. I want to thank you all for joining me for this short broadcast today, but I felt that I needed to get that out. And I look forward to speaking with you all again, Season 2, Episode 4 of the Second Wind Podcast.